My name's Evan Dalton. I'm one of the leaders here at Manomet, as is Trevor. And I guess we'll just give a brief overview of sort of what we're kind of going for with the project this year. We've changed it quite a bit from last year, and I think we've made this fairly clear to new participants in that we're trying to dial back our sort of hands-on guidance and trying to make things a bit more digital. But let's see. So I changed the slide here. Should have worked for everybody. So if it didn't, uh, Brian, did that work for you?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
So maybe
So last year, come again?
I wonder if I could just interject one thing here.
Yeah.
Just to add to what you said. For those that are sort of new to the project, or maybe were focusing more on other things last year, this project is a research project that's 3 years long, um, under funding from the NSF. And our goal each year is to make some changes that will allow a wider and wider network of schools to participate, including some that are just too far away from Manomet to receive sort of direct personal service face to face by the staff there, but yet enable the schools to participate in the
Yes, absolutely.
satellite field stations eventually as they get their sites set up and their data collected. So that's why the shift this year is to uh, develop and test out this sort of more distance style of interaction and support. So it's we really value people participating. It's pretty important that people participate in the webinars and in the other methods of communication that Evan's going to talk about later on in the webinar. Hold on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Absolutely. So, yeah, last year we did some hands-on working with teachers and students at 4 different schools, um, and we worked with over a dozen teachers and over 500 students as well, and more teachers and students actually participated after our visits as well, and so we're mostly working in the field with teachers and students, collecting pre and post leaf out measurements of plants at field sites at the schools. And the data are now available on the website. We've put those up. And a bunch of other materials as well for those new to the program are available on the website, which is manomet.org/climate lab. There's a materials and resources tab there that you guys can find um, several resources on. So as Brian and I were saying, we are going to be expanding a bit this year. We still have participants in Duxbury, Sandwich, Wareham, and Weymouth. There was a little bit of turnover at each of the schools, so we're happy to welcome on some new participants. And we also have participants or potential participants at the Portland Friends School, Cambridge Friends School, Harpswell Coastal Academy, Sacred Heart, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly, Audison Middle School in Arlington. So, as Brian was saying, this sort of represents a larger geographic range. So it's going to be hard for Trevor or myself to drive all the way up to down East Maine to collect data with students. So the idea is for us to provide more materials online. So we believe that this is the current list of participants. If you see any differences, feel free to let us know. So yeah, this year we're including several new schools, and we're also going to have 2 versions of the curriculum after some feedback from teachers last year. We have the original approximately 3-week curriculum, And then we also have a shorter 1 week curriculum. Now the longer curriculum is fairly adjustable so that it's sort of modular, so you can actually incorporate that as a supplement to the shorter curriculum. But we do ask that you at least teach the shorter curriculum, which is about 5 days worth of lessons. It's important that the curriculum be taught as part of the data collection because we're really trying to assess how well the curriculum and the field aspect of the project work towards advancing students' knowledge of the subject. So that's going to that's essentially going to be assessed by a series of pre and post tests, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So like we said earlier, we're going to be doing these webinars. Obviously, we're in one right now. We're also going to be having various online resources, such as video tutorials. We now have an official Climate Lab YouTube channel, so you know that we're the real deal. We're also going to provide a lot more, many more materials on the website as well for the time being. Eventually, we're going to shift over our method of dissemination of information to a Google group. And that's actually going to allow us to have you guys directly upload spreadsheets of your students' data as well. So that will allow us to deal with the data a lot quicker. And as Brian said, this is a 3-year project. This is the 2nd year. So next year, we really hope to dial it up even more as far as geographic expansion. So we have partners out at Point Blue in California, as well as folks down in around Virginia or in Baltimore, actually, that are interested in seeing how this goes. So success this year is going to be contingent upon our ability to get the information out clearly and concisely and in a method that promotes repeatability from the teacher's perspective. So any feedback we can get from you guys throughout the year is going to be incredibly important in having this happen. We're also going to be having some supplemental units as well that are optional. And Brian, I don't know if you want to speak to this. I know you guys have been developing a few different units for students to, or for teachers to use in regards to climate change.
Sure. There are several reasons why we decided to develop some additional materials beyond the 2 curricula. First, there's a lot of excitement in setting up your field sites the first year and getting out there and taking those data, but the whole point in the long term is for the data to be piling up and starting to enable us to ask questions and tell stories on the basis of what is emerging from it. And that provides a lot of rich opportunities for students, especially middle school students who are just learning about data analysis, to work with data they've collected as well as data that have been collected at Manomet over the years. And we could, Evan has said we've got data that were collected last year and the year before that are up on the website, but they're big data sets and they're messy. And to help you teachers think about how you might like to work with the data sets, we're developing a series of short activities that mine some of the data that the students have collected to explore, key topics in data analysis. And we'll be glad to get suggestions for other topics that you might find useful to have materials to support. And in the same way, we're starting to develop some short lessons based on the short activities and investigations based on some of the Manomet bird data again, partly to help the students get into the math and see the math used to answer questions and do investigations. Um, and we're also going to, at every step, we'll be providing a little more data than you might necessarily want to use in case any of the teachers get interested in following up on the data with their own questions, or there's an enterprising student who wants to follow up on them. And finally, there's been a request from more than one teacher to have uh, activities that are, in a sense, are a little bit more obviously rewarding right away than leaf out data, which can, starts to make more and more sense as the years pile up, but sometimes can seem a little tedious in the field, in the actual taking of the data when you're out there sweating next to the poison ivy and the showers of caterpillars coming down on you and all. Um, and the phenology calendar uh, is a way to set up some observations, some of which will be done in common across all the schools that do it, and some that will be of particular interest to you, which allows students to track key seasonal um, biological events in the fall and in the spring, and I suppose in the winter as well, depending on what phenomena you choose to look at. Um, these can also be part of a local school, a growing local school data set and investigation about the way the seasons are changing year by year and how organisms are responding to it. But there are also national efforts and regional efforts doing very similar things with a lot of overlap in the same species. So the students can easily go onto the National Phenology Network or eBird or places like that and see what other people are collecting in their region or across the country to see how their data are fitting into a much larger effort to sort of an Earth observatory method. All of the we're also working on a protocol to do some more experimental things. The next thing we're going to be sending around is an activity using um, the, the forcing of leaf out in twigs collected in the wintertime from different species. Some different experiments to be done with that are suggested by current scientific investigations going at BU and elsewhere. The goal for all of these is for them to be short, like a lesson or two, with flexibility for expansion if they excite you. They're going to be circulated in draft form, and we really would like feedback as promptly as possible on these so that we can get them into really usable form, including, appropriate student supports and all that, so you can make use of them flexibly. So they are optional, but we think they'll offer some enrichment and interest, and I think even some fun um, for the schools that want them. And there'll be quite a diversity of them, so it'll be sort of a slowly growing library over the course of this year.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so these are going to be a powerful tool to help you guys sort of maybe customize your approach to teaching about climate. So I think really what we're offering are a bunch of different options and sort of a customizable suite of options, I guess. So we'll move on here. So this is the first in a string of webinars. We'd like to try to have webinars roughly once a month, and this way it's maybe taking a little bit of load off of asking all of the teachers to come in for an entire day for professional development. It also allows us to obviously reach teachers who wouldn't be able to commute here. But also, it's promoting sort of a rich and steady back and forth, I guess, between educators and the Climate Lab team. So right now, this first webinar is just to kind of test things out, and also just give you an overview and general background. But in the future, our webinars are going to cover how to handle curriculum. An introduction to curriculum is probably what we're going to go over next in late October. And then we'll start getting into some of the lesson plans, and then as it draws closer to field season, we'll focus on data collection and then data analysis as well. And we're more than open to suggestions for subjects for future webinars, but those are roughly the general subjects that we're going to cover. We've sort of settled on October 15th as sort of a deadline for teachers to collect and send in student and also teacher permission slips. We just posted the newest versions, the 2015 versions of these permissions on our website, once again in the materials and resources tab under manomet.org/climate lab. So you'll find teacher and student permission slips there, which you can hopefully get out in the next week or so and go from there. October 15th is also sort of a good time to let us know when you're going to be administering pre-tests. We're going to get the most recent pre-test up there, and the big secret is that the pre-test is the same as the post-test, which allows us to assess students' learning. But it's important that before you start teaching any of the curriculum, to get the pre-tests taken care of. And those can be sent in to Brian at Turk, all of these materials. And also it's a good time to figure out what species you want to look into for the phenology calendar. If you have questions about that, feel free to shoot us an email, and we can give you some feedback as to what might be a good set of species that you might want to look at. So here's the address for Brian at Turk. Please send your permission slips to them. And once again, I guess these are the types of things that we'd like you guys to get in line, I suppose. Do you have anything else to add,
Evan,
Brian?
could I just jump? Yeah. So the phenology calendar draft, I circulated to a few teachers to get initial feedback, just to make sure that it wasn't like this. And we'll get the draft posted to the website in the next day or two, so you can look at it yourself and send feedback. And our email contacts are there, and we can also start using the Google groups for folks to post comments and discuss things, and also communicate with each other, of course. So that's all.
Absolutely. So yeah, as the school year's starting up, we're getting all these things up and rolling, and we'll continue sending you email updates for the time being, and keep checking back on the website, because the materials are going to keep piling up there as we get them up and rolling.